Have you ever wondered if a single act of kindness can completely rewrite the script of your life? I found the answer one October afternoon in Albuquerque, when I decided that a dirty, ragged man deserved the same dignity as any client who paid $40 for my work. The desert wind carried the scent of roasted green chili when I closed my small salon that Tuesday. It was October 17, 2023. And I still remember every detail of that day because it was when my life took a turn I never thought possible. The doorbell jingled when I locked up, and that's when I saw him. He was leaning against the adobe wall of El Corazon Market, across the street. It wasn't uncommon to see homeless people in Albuquerque's historic downtown, but something about him caught my attention. Maybe it was the way he held a broken guitar against his chest, as if it were his most precious possession. Or maybe it was simply the fact that, despite being dirty and wearing torn clothes, he tried to comb his long, tangled hair with his fingers. My name is Elena Contreras, I'm 38 years old, a single mother to 15-year-old Sophia, and I've been cutting hair in the same small salon on Central Avenue for 12 years. I learned the craft from my abuela Esperanza, who always said, "Mija, our hands were made to give dignity to people, one cut at a time." At that moment, looking at that man, my grandmother's words echoed in my mind. I crossed the street before I even thought about what I was doing. "Disculpe, senor," I said, approaching him. "Would you like a haircut?" He looked up, his eyes as green as the Sandia Mountains at dawn, and for a moment, he seemed not to understand. His face was weathered by the sun and a hard life, but there was something in his eyes that didn't match his appearance. Maybe intelligence. A deep pain that I recognized because I carried it with me too. I don't have money," he murmured, his voice rough. "I'm not charging," I replied, surprising myself with my own determination. "I have time, and you need it. It's that simple." 15 minutes later, we were back at my salon. His name was Marcus, he was 41 years old, and for the past 3 months, he had been living on the streets after losing everything in a series of bad decisions he didn't want to elaborate on. As I prepared my tools, he watched every movement with almost reverent attention. "It's been a long time since anyone treated me like a real person," he said, as I placed the cape around his shoulders. I started cutting slowly, carefully. His hair was dirtier than I expected, but underneath the dirt, there was a beautiful dark brown. As I worked, Marcus told me he was a musician, or had been, before everything collapsed. He talked about Nashville, about lost contracts, about how alcohol and cocaine had devoured his dreams and relationships. "Music was everything to me," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "It was my language, my religion. And I betrayed it." There was something in the way he spoke about music that touched me deeply. It was the same passion I felt when transforming someone's hair, when I saw the confidence reborn in a client's eyes. It was true love for a craft. When I finished, an hour later, the man in the mirror was unrecognizable. The haircut revealed a strong face, marked but dignified. Marcus touched his hair with the tips of his fingers, as if he couldn't believe what he saw. I remember who I was," he murmured, his eyes welling up. Not satisfied with just the cut, I shaved him carefully, using the technique my father had taught me when I was a child and he was still alive. When I finished, I offered him some clothes that my ex-husband had left behind, hidden in the back of my closet for years. "Why are you doing this?" Marcus asked as he dressed. "Because everyone deserves to feel human," I replied, and I realized that this was a truth I was still learning to apply to my own life. Before he left, Marcus picked up the broken guitar and, with careful movements, began to play a simple yet devastatingly beautiful melody. When he started singing, his voice was rough but filled with raw emotion that made me shiver. Sometimes grace comes disguised as a stranger's hands. Sometimes hope hides in the smallest of plans. You saw me when I couldn't see myself. Gave me back the man I used to be. When he finished, I was crying. Not just because of the music, but because of something I recognized at that moment. He wasn't just a talented homeless man. He was a true artist, someone with a rare gift. Is that song yours? I asked. I just composed it, he said, smiling for the first time. For you. I wrote my number on the back of a salon card and gave it to him. If you need anything, call me. And Marcus, don't give up on music. The world needs to hear this. He kept the card like it was a treasure and left into the night falling over Albuquerque. That night, when I told Sophia what had happened, she looked at me with that mix of pride and worry only teenage daughters can express. You have a really big heart, Mommy, she said. I just hope you don't get hurt. I didn't know that, in 3 days, my brothers Roberto and Diego would find out what I had done. And I didn't know that their reactions would force me to question everything about my family and who I really was. But that's a story for the next chapter. For now, I slept peacefully, knowing I had done the right thing, without imagining that that free haircut would change not only Marcus's life but my own life in ways I could never have predicted. Sometimes, the most important moments of our lives disguise themselves as simple gestures. And sometimes, when we reach out to save someone, we discover that the one who was really drowning was us. There are moments in life when you discover that the people who should support you are the first ones to question your sanity. I learned this on a Friday night, at my mother's house, when my brothers turned an act of kindness into evidence that I had lost my mind. The call came Thursday morning, while I was making coffee at the salon before opening. It was my mother, Carmen Contreras, with that voice she used when the men in the family had concerns about women. Elena, Mija, Roberto saw you the other day with a bum going into your salon, she said, getting straight to the point. He wants to talk to you and Diego tonight. Come over for dinner at 7. My stomach tightened. Roberto, my older brother, was a supervisor at a construction company and had considered himself the man of the family since Dad passed away 8 years ago. Diego, 2 years younger than me, worked as a car salesman and had inherited our father's tendency to judge people by appearances. Mama, it's not what you think. At 7, Elena. Don't make me worry more than I already am. I spent the whole day with that knot in my stomach, that familiar feeling of about to be judged. It was the same feeling I had when I decided to divorce Carlos 5 years ago, when my brothers thought I should tough it out and think about Sophia. The same feeling I had when I decided not to go back to college after Dad passed away, choosing to work to help support the family. It was always me. Always the one who sacrificed, the one who gave in, the one who put everyone before myself. I arrived at my mother's house, a traditional adobe house in the Old Town neighborhood that Dad had restored with his own hands, and found Roberto and Diego in the living room, drinking Coronas and watching the UNM Lobos game. My mom was in the kitchen, making pozole, the familiar smell of hominy and red chili filling the house. Here she is, Roberto said, not taking his eyes off the TV. Our little savior sister. Diego laughed, that sarcastic laugh that always made me feel small. Sit down, Elena, Mama said, appearing in the kitchen door with her hands on her hips. The boys want to talk to you. The boys. I was 38 years old and still treated like a child who needed to be supervised by the men of the family. Roberto finally turned to me, that condescending look I had known since childhood. Elena, explain something to me. Teresa, from the market, said she saw you bringing a stinky bum into your salon. She said you stayed in there with him for over an hour. He paused dramatically. With the door closed. It's not what you think, Roberto. I just cut his hair. For free. Diego exploded, getting up from the armchair. Roberto told me. You cut hair for some junkie for free. Elena, you've completely lost your mind? Anger began to boil in my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm. He wasn't just some junkie. He was a human being who needed help. Oh, please. Roberto rolled his eyes. Elena, you have a teenage daughter to raise on your own. You can't go around doing charity for every bum you find on the street. Bum? The word came out of my mouth like a slap. He has a name. Marcus. And he didn't harm me. This time, Diego said, stepping closer. But what about next time? Elena, these guys are dangerous. They do drugs, they're violent. You don't even know him. And you do? Roberto stood up too, and suddenly I felt surrounded by my own brothers. Elena, you've always been too naive for your own good. Remember when you lent $500 to that girl Sophia's friend and never saw the money again? The mention of the lost money hit me like a punch to the stomach. It was true. I had lent the amount to the mother of one of Sophia's friends who was having problems, and I had never been reimbursed. But this had nothing to do with Marcus. That was different. Different, nothing. Diego shook his head. Elena, you have a pattern. Always trying to save everyone, always putting others before your own family. My own family? The phrase hit me like lightning. Diego, I worked during the day and studied at night for 3 years so I could give you money to finish college. And we're grateful for that, Roberto said, but his voice carried no gratitude. But that doesn't mean you can go around risking your safety and your reputation. My reputation? Elena, my mom finally spoke, coming out of the kitchen completely. Mija, the boys are worried about you. And so am I. Since the divorce, you've been strange. Doing these impulsive things. Strange. Impulsive. As if showing compassion for another human being was a symptom of some mental imbalance. I can't believe what I'm hearing, I said, getting up from the chair. You're treating me like I'm crazy because I was kind to someone who needed it. Kind? Roberto laughed, but there was no humor in his laugh. Elena, you weren't kind. You were irresponsible. And stupid. The word stupid hung in the air like a slap. Roberto, my mom scolded him, but weakly. It's true, Mama. Elena has always been like this. Too big of a heart, too small of a head. Remember when she wanted to be a social worker? Or when she wanted to teach poor children? Always wanting to save the world when she can't even take care of her own life. Each word was a stab. Roberto was digging up all the dreams I had abandoned, all the times I put the family's needs before my own ambitions. I took care of my life, I said, my voice trembling with anger and pain. I raised Sophia on my own. I kept my business running. With our help, Diego interrupted. Roberto lent you money for the salon. I get you clients. Mama takes care of Sophia when you can't. You didn't do anything on your own, Elena. It was true, but the way he said it, as if I were a failure, left me breathless. At that moment, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Elena? The voice on the other end was familiar, but different. Cleaner, more confident. It's Marcus. From the other day. Roberto and Diego exchanged meaningful glances, as if the timing of the call confirmed all their worst suspicions. Marcus, hi, I said, trying to keep my voice normal. How's everything? Elena, I had to call you. Something amazing happened. Do you remember the song I played for you? Well, I recorded it on my phone and posted it on social media. Elena, his voice was filled with emotion. It's already got over 50,000 views. People are reaching out to me about contracts. My heart leapt, but when I looked at my brothers, I only saw skepticism and irritation on their faces. Marcus, that's wonderful. I knew you had talent. Elena, I wanted to meet you. Give you a gift. A proper thank you for what you did for me. You literally saved my life. When I hung up, the silence in the room was as heavy as the air before a desert storm. So, Roberto said slowly, your bum is a famous singer overnight? Elena, for God's sake, can't you see he's fooling you? 50,000 views? Diego laughed. Elena, anyone can make that up. He probably doesn't even have a phone. You don't understand, I said, but my voice came out weak, doubtful. We understand, all right, Roberto said, stepping closer and placing his heavy hand on my shoulder. Elena, you're a good person. But you're naive. And this guy is taking advantage of that. I left my parents' house that night feeling smaller than ever. Why, whenever I tried to do something good, something that made me proud of myself, did my family manage to make me feel stupid? In fact, while I drove back home through the lit streets of Albuquerque, a different question began to form in my mind. What if they were wrong? What if, for the first time in my life, I had done something that really mattered? This question would keep me awake for the next 3 nights. And the answer would change everything. Have you ever noticed how some truths have perfect timing to explode in your face? Mine arrived on a Monday morning, in the form of a black Mercedes-Benz parked in front of my salon, with Marcus stepping out of it wearing a suit that probably cost more than my rent. I had spent the entire weekend ruminating over the conversation at my mother's house, questioning every word my brothers had said. Sophia noticed my state and, with that precocious wisdom she inherited from the Contreras women, said to me, Mommy, since when do you let Uncle Roberto decide what's right for you? Her question echoed in my mind. Since when, really? Since always, that was the honest answer. It was 8:30 in the morning when I saw the Mercedes. I thought it was a rich client who had gotten lost. My salon was in a modest part of Central Avenue, between a taqueria and a shop selling native crafts. It wasn't exactly the kind of place that attracted luxury car owners. Then the door opened, and Marcus stepped out. He wasn't the same man I had met a week ago. He was wearing a perfectly tailored dark gray suit, shoes that shone under the New Mexico sun, and his hair, the hair I had cut, was immaculately styled. But it was his eyes that had truly changed. There was no longer that desperate pain, that defeated resignation. There was hope. There was life. He entered the salon carrying a large box and a smile that lit up the entire room. Elena, he said, and his voice sounded different too, stronger, more confident. I hope you have a few minutes. I need to tell you what happened. I canceled my first client, something I never did, and we sat in the salon chairs as Marcus told a story that sounded like it was straight out of a movie. Remember the song I played for you? Sometimes Grace? He began, taking out a phone that was definitely not the same broken device I had seen the week before. Well, I recorded it that night, under a bridge, using an app on a phone I got at a shelter. I posted it on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. He showed me the numbers on the screen. They weren't 50,000 views. They were almost 2 million. Elena, in 3 days, my life changed completely. Record labels, agents, producers started reaching out. People wanted to know who I was, where I had come from. His voice trembled with emotion. And I told the story. Your story. The story of a woman who saw humanity where everyone else saw only a problem. My heart was beating so fast that I thought he could hear it. Marcus, this is incredible. But how did you? How did I get the clothes? The car? He smiled. Elena, you know what happens when a record label sees potential in you? They advance money. A lot of money. And the first thing I did was get dressed to come see you. He opened the box he had brought. Inside was a contract from Universal Music Group and a check. A check with more zeros than I had ever seen in my life. This is the advance for the music rights. $100,000. He paused, watching me process the information. Elena, without you, this song would have never existed. You didn't just give me a haircut. You gave me back my soul. I took the check with trembling hands. It was real. The paper, the signature, the numbers, all real. Marcus, I can't accept this. You can. Actually, you'll have to accept it, because I'm going to be even more successful, and I want you as my personal image manager. He laughed, a free laugh that didn't match the desperate man I had met. Elena, you have a gift. You see potential where others only see problems. That's rare. At that moment, the door to the salon opened with such force that the bell almost came off. It was Roberto, his face red with anger, followed by Diego and, to my complete mortification, my mother. Elena, what the hell is going on here? Roberto shouted, looking at Marcus as if he were a personal threat. I've been told you're here with that bum, and now he shows up in a Mercedes? The change in Marcus was instantaneous. He stood up, straightened his shoulders, and suddenly the successful man I had been seeing took full form. Good morning, he said, extending his hand to Roberto. I'm Marcus Reed. You must be one of Elena's brothers. Roberto ignored the extended hand. I know who you are. The bum who's been taking advantage of my sister. Roberto. I exclaimed, mortified. No, Elena, let me speak, Marcus said calmly. Mr. Roberto, I understand your concern. Indeed, a week ago I was living on the streets. But your sister helped me remember who I really am. And who are you really? Diego asked sarcastically. A better dressed con artist? Marcus took out his phone and played the song. His voice filled the small salon, clear and powerful, singing about second chances and the kindness of strangers. When he finished, even Roberto seemed shaken. This song has almost 3 million views, Marcus said. And it was inspired by what your sister did for me. My mother, who had been silent until then, finally spoke. Elena, Mija, why didn't you tell us about this? Because you didn't give me a chance. I exploded, all the frustration from the week pouring out at once. You judged me, called me stupid, irresponsible, without even wanting to know the whole story. Elena is right, Marcus said, his voice firm but respectful. And with all due respect, you should be proud of her. Your sister has a heart and intuition that are rare in this world. Roberto turned red, but it was Diego who attacked. And you think we're going to believe this crazy story? That in 1 week you became a millionaire? Marcus grabbed the contract from the box and extended it to Diego. Universal Music Group. 3-album contract. Elena, do you want to show the check? I showed the check. Diego turned pale. Elena, my mother said, her voice small, is this true? It's true, Mama. And you lost the chance to support me because you were too busy judging me. Roberto, for the first time in his life, seemed speechless. That's when Marcus dropped the final bomb. Elena, there's one more thing I need to tell you. After our story spread, other people started reaching out to me. People you've helped over the years. He paused. including a woman named Patricia Santos. She said you paid for her daughter's cancer treatment 2 years ago when she couldn't afford it. My mother looked at me with wide eyes. Elena. And a man named Jose Herrera, who said you cut hair for his entire family for free for 6 months when he was unemployed. Marcus continued. Elena, you have a reputation in the community. People know you as someone who helps, who cares. Roberto and Diego exchanged uncomfortable glances. Marcus, stop, I whispered, embarrassed. No, Elena. It's time for your family to know who you really are. He turned to my brothers. You have an extraordinary sister. And instead of celebrating her, you spend your time trying to tear her down. The silence that followed was so heavy that I could hear the old air conditioner in the salon working. It was my mother who broke the silence. Mijos, she said, looking at Roberto and Diego, I think we owe Elena an apology. But Roberto, instead of apologizing, became even more defensive. Mama, can't you see? This proves exactly what we were saying. Elena's been handing out money, helping everyone except herself. Roberto, I said, my voice firmer than I ever remember using with him, I help whoever I want to help. And I don't need your permission. The expression on his face changed. For the first time, I think he realized something fundamental had changed between us. And it had. Because in that moment, looking at the check in my hand and Marcus at my side, I finally understood something I should have realized years ago. My kindness wasn't weakness. It was my greatest strength. And it was time to stop apologizing for it. Have you ever realized how some people only show who they really are when they feel threatened? I discovered this when my newfound assertiveness made my brothers reveal secrets that explained years of manipulation and control. In the 3 days following the confrontation at the salon, my house became a silent war zone. Roberto called 7 times, each voicemail angrier than the last. Diego showed up at the salon twice, trying to convince me that Marcus was manipulating me with money. My mother wavered between embarrassed pride and genuine concern. But it was Sophia who said the words that changed everything. Mommy, why does Uncle Roberto get so mad when you do something good? It's like he doesn't want you to be happy. I was brushing her hair in our small room, where the walls still carried photos of our perfect family, photos that now seemed false, full of forced smiles and toxic hierarchies. It's complicated, Mija, I responded, but her question planted an uncomfortable seed in my mind. It's not, Sophia said, with that brutal honesty of a 15-year-old. He only gets mad when you do something without asking him first. Like you're his property. Her observation hit me like a punch to the stomach. Property. That was exactly how I sometimes felt. On Thursday night, Marcus called me with an offer that would change everything. Elena, the record label wants to make a music video for the song. They want to tell our story, show the before and after, film at your salon. They'll pay you $10,000 just for the location, and you'll be in the video with me. $10,000. It was more than I made in 3 months. Marcus, this is incredible. But are you sure? Elena, without your story, there is no song. You're a part of all this. I hung up the phone trembling with excitement and fear. For the first time in my life, something extraordinary was happening to me. Not to my brothers, not to my family, to me. I decided to tell my family on Sunday, at the traditional lunch at Mama's house. It was carnitas and refried beans day, when the entire Contreras family gathered after the 11 o'clock mass. I arrived with Sophia, who was radiant at the prospect of her mother appearing in a music video. Roberto and Diego were already there, drinking beer and watching soccer, their wives in the kitchen helping Mama. Elena, Roberto greeted me with that tone he used when he wanted to seem magnanimous. Did you bring more checks from your famous charity? His wife, Carmen Jr., who had always treated me condescendingly because I was divorced, laughed at the cruel joke. Actually, I said, taking a deep breath, I'm here to tell you that I'm going to be in a music video. Marcus' song became a national phenomenon. The silence was instantaneous. Even the TV seemed to get quieter. A music video? Diego asked, as if I had announced I was going to become an astronaut. Universal Music wants to film at my salon. Tell our story. They're paying me $10,000. Roberto choked on his beer. Elena, you can't be serious. I am. And I've already accepted. You accepted? Roberto stood up from the armchair as if he had been bitten by a snake. Elena, didn't you discuss this with the family? Why would I? It's my life, my business. Because you have no experience with these things. Diego joined his brother. Elena, you're going to humiliate yourself on national television. And humiliate us too. How is that humiliating? Elena, Carmen Jr. intervened with her sweet and poisonous voice. Do you really think it's a good idea to appear in a video about charity? People are going to think our family needs help. The hypocrisy took my breath away. Our family, who lived in modest houses and worked in common jobs, was worried about appearances. And there's more, I continued, deciding to lay all the cards on the table. Marcus invited me to be his manager. Manage his image, his public appearances. This time, it was my mother who exploded. Elena. Mija, you can't abandon the salon. It's a family business. I'm not abandoning it. I'm going to expand. Expand for what? Roberto was red now. Elena, you don't know anything about music, about entertainment. You're going to get into an area you know nothing about and lose everything. How did you lose, Roberto? The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Roberto turned pale. What did you say? You heard me. How did you lose when you tried to open your own construction company 5 years ago? The silence in the room was deadly. Diego nervously looked between me and Roberto. Elena, my mother said softly, this doesn't come into play. It does, Mama. Because when Roberto lost $40,000 in his business, I didn't stand around calling him stupid or incompetent. I lent him money so he wouldn't lose the house. Roberto was shaking with rage. This is different, Elena. I'm a man, I have experience. Experience in what? In going bankrupt? Because that's what happened. Elena. Roberto shouted. You have no right to. I do. Because I'm tired of you treating me like I'm incapable while you yourselves make the same mistakes you accuse me of making. That's when Diego dropped the bomb. Elena, you want to know the truth? The truth is you've always been irresponsible with money. You think we don't know you lend money to anyone who asks. And what's wrong with that? The problem, Roberto took control of the conversation again, is that you have a daughter to raise and responsibilities. And you go around playing saint. Playing saint? The anger was rising up my throat like bile. Roberto, I paid your car payments for 6 months when you were unemployed. Diego, I lent you money to make a down payment on your house. Mama, I've been paying your electricity for 3 years. My mother turned pale. Elena, you never said this was a problem. Because it wasn't a problem. But now you're using my generosity against me, like it's a weakness. It's not weakness, Roberto said, but his voice was different now, quieter. It's just. Elena, you've always been the one who solves the family's problems. The one who takes care of everyone. And now that I want to take care of myself, you have a problem with it. Diego and Roberto exchanged a look I couldn't decipher. Elena, Diego finally said, you don't understand. If you become this guy's manager, if you get rich, Things are going to change. What things? Everything. Roberto exploded. Elena, if you don't need the family anymore, who will? Who will? He stopped mid-sentence, realizing what he was revealing. Who will what, Roberto? It was my mother who completed it, her voice full of shame. Who will help us when we need it, Mija? The truth hit me like a truck. It wasn't about protecting me. It was about keeping me dependent. It was about making sure I remained the woman who solved everyone's problems, who lent money without question, who put the family's needs before her own. You're afraid, I said, my voice coming out as a horrified whisper. Not that I'll get hurt. You're afraid that I won't need you anymore. Or better, that you can't count on me anymore. Roberto tried to deny it, but it was clear on his face. On all of their faces. Elena, that's not it. It is, Roberto. And you know what's worse? You convinced me that my kindness was a flaw to keep me small. To keep me controllable. I grabbed my purse and Sophia's hand. Elena, where are you going? My mother asked, tears in her eyes. I'm going to live my life, Mama. And you're going to have to learn to live yours without using me as an emotional and financial crutch. We left the house. In the car, Sophia held my hand. Mommy, you did the right thing. Do you think so? I think you finally stopped apologizing for being amazing. That night, I called Marcus. I accept all the offers, I said. The music video, the partnership, everything. Elena, are you sure? For the first time in my life, I'm absolutely sure. It was time to discover who I really was when I stopped trying to be who everyone expected me to be. Have you ever noticed how some people only value what they've lost when they see you flourishing without them? I discovered this when my new life began to shine brighter than the desert sun, and suddenly everyone wanted a slice of my happiness. 3 months after our family fight, I was sitting in a director's chair on the set of the Sometimes Grace music video, watching Marcus sing the song that had changed our lives. My salon had been transformed into a small film production, with professional lights, cameras, and a 15-person crew. It was surreal. I, Elena Contreras, the irresponsible one who knew nothing about entertainment, was producing a music video that already had 5 million previews. Cut, shouted the director, Jake Morrison, a young man from Los Angeles who treated my opinions with a respect my own family had never shown. Elena, what did you think of that take? What did I think? He was asking my opinion. Not Marcus's, not some record executive's, mine. I think the camera should be lower when he sings the part, "You saw me when I couldn't see myself," I said, surprising myself with my own confidence. It would make it more intimate, more vulnerable. Perfect. That's exactly what we needed. Marcus looked at me from the set and smiled. Over the past 3 months, our professional partnership had transformed into something I never expected, a true friendship. He taught me about the music industry, and I helped him build an authentic image. More importantly, he showed me what it was like to be treated as an equal, not as someone who needed protection or control. Aunt Elena. Sophia ran over from craft services, radiant. It was Saturday, and she was spending the day on set, amazed by all the action. The Rolling Stone photographer wants to talk to you. Rolling Stone. 3 months ago, I barely knew the magazine. Now, they wanted to interview the woman behind the viral phenomenon that's redefining how we see compassion in America. During lunch break, while eating a burrito from the catering, which was better than any restaurant in Albuquerque, my phone rang. It was a number I hadn't seen in 2 weeks, Roberto. Elena, his voice sounded strange, softer than usual. Hi, sister. How are you? Busy, Roberto. I'm working. Ah, yes, the music video. Elena, I saw it on TV. On KOAT 7. They did a story about you and Marcus. I had seen the story. The Albuquerque hairdresser who discovered the next big talent in country music. They called me a talent scout and a visionary entrepreneur. Adjectives my brothers would never use to describe me. What do you want, Roberto? Elena, we were wrong. Mama is very sad. She misses you on Sundays. Roberto, in 3 months, you've called twice. And only after you saw on TV that I'm successful. It's not like that, Elena. It's just, we were ashamed. You were right. About everything. Part of me wanted to accept the apology, go back to the comfort of our toxic family dynamic. But 3 months of therapy, yes, I finally had money for therapy, had taught me to recognize manipulation when I heard it. Roberto, I appreciate that you called. But I'm not ready for this conversation. Elena, you're our sister. Family is family. Real family doesn't try to belittle you when you grow, Roberto. I hung up before he could respond. Marcus approached when he saw my expression. Family? He asked. Roberto. He wants to apologize now that I'm on TV. And how do you feel? It was a question he always asked. Marcus had taught me that my feelings were valid, that I didn't need to justify my emotions to anyone. Sad, I admitted. And relieved at the same time. That makes sense. You can feel both things. That's what I valued most in our friendship. Marcus never tried to fix my problems or tell me how to feel. He simply validated my experience. Elena. Jake called. Ready for your scene? My scene. I was going to appear at the end of the music video, cutting Marcus's hair, showing the transformation that had inspired it all. It was terrifying and exciting at the same time. As I prepared, applying the makeup the team had done for me, I reflected on how my life had changed. It wasn't just the money, although financial security was liberating. It was the way people treated me now. With respect. With genuine interest in my opinions. The week before, I had been invited to speak at a female entrepreneurship conference in Santa Fe. Me. Elena Contreras, who 3 months ago was considered irresponsible by her own family. Action. The cameras rolled, and I did what I knew best, I cut hair. But this time, it wasn't just a cut. It was art. It was storytelling. It was the story of 2 people who saved each other. When we finished, it was already night. The set was taken down, the crew left, and it was finally just me, Marcus, and Sophia in my salon. Mommy, Sophia said, you look different. Different how? More you. I can't explain it exactly. Marcus laughed. I can explain. Your mom stopped hiding. Hiding? Elena, when I met you, you were hiding behind your kindness. Using it as a shield so you didn't have to fight for what you wanted. He paused. Now you use your kindness as a tool. To build, not just to survive. His words touched me deeply. It was true. For years, I had used my generosity as a way to avoid conflict, to keep the family peace. Now, I was using it to create something new. Marcus, can I ask you something? Of course. Don't you feel angry? About how people treated you before? He thought for a moment. I feel sadness, sometimes. But anger? Not much. Because holding on to anger is like trying to warm yourself by burning your own house down. In the end, you're the one who gets hurt. And what if they come back? The people who rejected you? Then I decide, case by case, if they deserve a second chance. But not because they owe me anything, and because I choose to give it. That night, I took Sophia to dinner at Sadie's of New Mexico, the restaurant I'd always dreamed of eating at but could never afford. We ordered sopapillas with honey, and she told me how proud she was of me at school. "Mommy, Sarah Martinez said she saw you on TV and that you're famous now." "I'm not famous, Mija. I'm just doing something I love." "But you are different. Stronger." "You think so?" "I think you finally stopped apologizing for being amazing." The wisdom of my 15-year-old daughter left me speechless. When we got home, there was a bouquet of flowers at the door. White daisies, my favorites, though I had never told anyone in the family. The card read, "Elena, we are proud of you. With love, Mama, Roberto, and Diego." Sophia read the card over my shoulder. "What are you going to do?" I looked at the flowers, then at my daughter, then at the house I could now comfortably afford thanks to my work with Marcus. "I'm going to put the flowers in a vase," I said finally. "And I'll decide in my own time if I'm ready to talk to them. And if you're not, then I won't. And that's okay." It was the first time in my life I said those words and truly believed them. It was okay to choose when and how to forgive. It was okay to prioritize my own well-being. It was okay not to be the eternal savior of the family. As I arranged the daisies in a vase, my phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "Elena, I just spoke with the label. They want to discuss your own beauty product line. Elena Contreras, Beauty with Heart. Would you be up for a meeting? My own product line." Me, who 3 months ago was considered incapable of making important decisions. I replied, "Let's schedule the meeting. It's time to show the world what happens when a woman stops apologizing for shining." And for the first time in a long time, I fell asleep not worrying about what others would think of my choices. Because I had finally learned that the most important opinion about my life was my own. The New Mexico desert sun had taught me something fundamental. Some plants only bloom when they stop hiding in the shadows. Have you ever noticed how real second chances don't come with fanfare or grand promises? They come slowly, in small gestures and genuine changes that you barely notice until suddenly you're breathing purer air. 6 months after the music video, I was at the opening of my second location, Elena Contreras Beauty, where every cut tells a story, when I saw Roberto standing across the street, just watching. Not trying to enter, not making a scene. Just there. It was December 2024, and Albuquerque was decorated with Christmas luminarias, making the city glow like fallen stars in the desert. My new salon was in a more upscale area of town, but I had kept the original one as well, hiring 2 assistants to take care of it. Patricia Santos, the woman whose daughter's cancer treatment I had helped pay for, now worked for me as the manager. "Elena," Sophia whispered, following my gaze. "It's Uncle Roberto." In the past few months, my family had tried various ways to reconnect with me. Flowers without a card. Voicemails apologizing. Diego even came by the salon once, but when I saw that he just wanted to talk about money, if I could invest in his car business, I asked him to leave. But Roberto standing there, without trying to draw attention, was different. "I'll talk to him," I said to Sophia. "Are you sure?" "No. But I'll talk anyway." I crossed the street, passing the guests of the opening, old clients, new business partners, even some local reporters. Marcus was inside, charming everyone with stories about our partnership, always making sure to give me credit. "Hi, Roberto," I said as I reached him. He turned, and I was surprised to see how he seemed, smaller. Not physically, but there was something in his eyes I had never seen before. Humility, maybe. "Elena. Congratulations on your new salon. It looks amazing." "Thank you." We stood in silence for a moment, watching the movement through the window. "Elena, I need to tell you something." I waited. 3 months ago, I was fired from the construction company. I felt a tightness in my chest. The old instinct to ask if he needed help, if I could do something. "I'm sorry," I said, but kept my feet firm on the ground. "The difference is that this time, I didn't run to you. Not to Mama, not to Diego. I started going to therapy for men." He paused. "Elena, I spent my whole life using you as an emotional crutch. And teaching my kids that it was normal to treat women like that." His words caught me by surprise. Roberto in therapy? The man who always said that problems are solved by working, not talking. The therapist helped me understand that I was afraid of you growing because it meant I would have to grow too. That I would have to stop being the man of the family, who controls everyone, and learn to just be. Roberto. I looked at my brother's face and saw something that took years to recognize: genuine vulnerability. Roberto. "No, let me finish. Elena, you've always been the strongest of us. The bravest. And instead of celebrating that, I spent years trying to diminish you because your strength highlighted my weakness." A tear fell down his face, and my heart squeezed. "Elena, I'm not here to ask for forgiveness, hoping that everything will go back to the way it was. I'm here to tell you that I'm proud of you. And if you give me a chance, I want to learn to be the brother you've always deserved." I stood in silence, processing his words. In the past few months, I had imagined this moment hundreds of times. Sometimes it came with anger, sometimes with satisfaction for being right. I never imagined it would come with this mix of pain and hope. "Roberto, I appreciate you being here. And I appreciate your words. But you're not ready to trust me again. I understand. It's not about being ready. It's about being careful. I had to learn the difference." He nodded. "Elena, can I ask you for something? Not for me, but for my kids." Roberto had 2 children, Miguel, 12, and Ana, 9, whom I adored but had seen rarely since our fight. "They ask about you. About why you don't come on Sundays anymore. And I want them to have the chance to know the real Aunt Elena. Not the woman I forced you to be." My heart broke a little. Miguel and Ana were not to blame for the adults' mistakes. "Roberto, can I think about it?" "Of course." "And Elena?" "No matter what you decide, I'll keep working to be a better man. Because that's what I owe to my family. To myself." He turned to leave, but I called him. "Roberto?" "Yes?" "How about we start slow? A coffee one day." The smile that lit up his face was so genuine that it reminded me of the older brother who used to protect me on the playground when we were kids. "I'd love that." I returned to the opening with a heart that was confused but lighter. Marcus found me at the door. "Are you okay?" "I think so. Roberto is in therapy." "And how do you feel about that?" "Hopeful. And careful at the same time." "That sounds very healthy to me." The party continued late. Diego showed up too, but stayed outside, waiting. When everyone left, I went out to talk to him. "Elena," he said, visibly nervous, "Roberto told me about your conversation. And I wanted to tell you that I've started therapy too. Individual and with Carmen Jr. We're trying to save our marriage." That surprised me. Diego and Carmen Jr. always seemed to have the perfect marriage, at least on the surface. "Elena, I realized I pass my anger on to others when I'm frustrated with myself. And I've been frustrated for a long time." "Why?" "Because I know I'm not as brave as you. I never was. I was always the middle brother who followed Roberto so I wouldn't have to make tough decisions." His honesty was disconcerting. "Diego, that must have been hard to realize." It was. But you know what was harder? Realizing I have an incredible sister and spent years wasting that because I was jealous. Jealous? Elena, you've always known who you were. You always had a clear moral compass. I've always wanted to have that certainty, that inner strength. Instead of trying to develop it in myself, I tried to destroy it in you. We stood in silence, watching the Christmas lights flicker on Central Avenue. Elena, I know I don't deserve immediate forgiveness. But if you give me a chance, I want to be the brother who supports you, not the one who sabotages you. Diego, can I ask you something? Of course. Why now? Why did you both decide to change now? He thought for a moment. Because we saw you blooming without us, and we realized we lost something precious because of our pride. And because... He hesitated. Because our kids started asking questions we couldn't answer. What kind of questions? Miguel asked me why Aunt Elena doesn't come on Sundays anymore. And when I tried to explain, I realized I didn't have an explanation that made sense without making me look like the villain of the story. It was understandable. Children have a way of cutting through our hypocrisy with simple questions. Diego, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I can trust you completely again. But I'm willing to try, slowly. That's all I can ask for. 3 months later. Mother's Day 2025 was different from any other in the Contreras family. Instead of the traditional lunch at Mama's house, she came to my new home, a 2-story house in Foothills that I had bought with the profits from my partnership with Marcus. Roberto brought Miguel and Ana, who were fascinated by the stories about the music video and my beauty product line. Diego came with Carmen Jr., who had given me sincere apologies a few weeks earlier. But the biggest change was in my mother. Mija, she said, helping me in the kitchen, I want to apologize. Mama. No, Elena. Let me speak. I spent years saying I wanted my children to be happy, but in reality, I wanted you to be safe. And to me, safety meant family always together, even when the union was toxic. She paused, her hands trembling slightly. Elena, when you cut that man's hair, it wasn't just kindness. It was courage. And I should have celebrated that, not questioned it. Mama, you were worried. I was scared. Scared that if you became too independent, you wouldn't need me anymore. But children are not meant to stay small, Elena. They're meant to be prepared to fly. We cried together in the kitchen, hugging as we hadn't in years. The lunch was normal. Not perfect, but normal. Roberto made jokes that were funny instead of mean. Diego genuinely asked me about my business plans. The kids told stories about school. After lunch, while we washed dishes together, Sophia said to me, Mommy, you look happy. Do I? Before, even when you smiled, your eyes looked sad. Now they look happy too. And you? How do you feel about all this? Relieved. I like my uncles, but I didn't like how they treated you. Now they're nicer. That was Sophia. Always direct, always honest. That night, Marcus called. Elena, I have news. Good or bad? Good. Sometimes Grace has been nominated for the Grammy for Best Country Solo Performance. I dropped the phone. Elena. Elena, are you there? Marcus, I said, grabbing the phone back, is this real? It's real. And Elena, when I go to the ceremony, I want you to be my guest. Not as my business partner, but as the friend who saved me. 2 years later. Today, as I write this story on the porch of my house, watching Sophia prepare for her high school graduation, I reflect on how life can change when we stop apologizing for who we are. My Beauty with Heart product line is now in stores across the country. Roberto works with me as a construction supervisor, renovating salons for other entrepreneurs. Diego left car sales and is studying to be a couples therapist. Marcus won the Grammy. I was there, wearing a dress that cost more than my entire annual income used to, watching my friend achieve the dream he almost lost. When he thanked Elena Contreras, who taught me that sometimes grace comes disguised as second chances, I cried in the national audience. My mom tends the flowers in the garden of the original salon. Roberto calls me every week to chat, not to ask for favors. Diego brought his therapy group to a workshop on self-esteem at the salon. And me? I still cut hair. I still see potential in people others disregard. But now I do it from a place of strength, not of needing approval. Last week, a woman came to the salon. She was leaving an abusive relationship, broke, without self-esteem. I cut her hair for free and told her my story. Sometimes, I told her, the most revolutionary thing we can do is treat ourselves with the same kindness we offer others. She looked at me through the mirror and asked, "And if my family doesn't understand?" "Then you build a new family," I replied. "Of people who celebrate you for who you are, not for how they can use you." When she left the salon, I saw the same transformation I had seen in Marcus 2 years ago. Not just in her hair, but in her eyes. In that glow of someone who remembers their own worth. Sophia is going to the University of New Mexico this fall, to study psychology. She wants to help other families find healthier ways to relate to each other. "I want to do what you did, Mommy," she told me. But with words instead of scissors. Marcus is dating an elementary school teacher named Sarah, who loves his music but loves him for the man he is, not for what he can do. They're getting married in the fall, and I'm going to be the maid of honor. And as for love? I haven't found someone yet, but for the first time in my life, it doesn't bother me. I'm learning the difference between being alone and being lonely. I'm alone by choice, not by abandonment. Yesterday, I cut the hair of a military veteran who was going through tough times. When he was finished, he asked how much he owed. "Nothing," I said. "But if you want to pay me, pay it forward. Help someone when you can." Because in the end, I realized I didn't save Marcus that day in October. We saved each other. He taught me that my kindness was strength, and I taught him that it's never too late to start over. And sometimes, when the sun sets over the Sandia Mountains, tinting the sky pink and gold, I remember the Elena I used to be, the woman who apologized for existing, who made herself small so others could feel big. She's still here, somewhere inside me. But now she has company, the Elena who learned to bloom, who discovered that second chances are for those brave enough to take them, and who taught an entire family that true love doesn't control, it frees. Every haircut still tells a story. But now, I'm finally the protagonist of my own narrative.